Hello everyone, this is Dr. Sangeeta Chaudhary. In my today's class, I am going to talk about one of the important calcium imbalances, that is hypocalcemia. I'll talk about the cause, approach, diagnosis and treatment of a case of hypocalcemia. First, let's look at the definition of hypocalcemia. Whenever serum calcium concentration goes below 8.4 mg per deciliter, provided serum albumin level is normal, or else if ionized calcium level is below 4.2 mg per deciliter, it is known as hypocalcemia. There is something known as pseudo hypocalcemia, which we can see in cases of hypoalbuminemia. In my previous class of hypercalcemia, I have already discussed about the calcium balance and homeostasis in our body. In blood, most of the calcium or almost 50% of the calcium in the blood remains bound to albumin. So whenever there is a reduction in the albumin level, the measured calcium level will be low. So in that case, we need to get the corrected calcium level by using this formula. So corrected calcium is equal to measured calcium plus 0.8 into 4 minus albumin. This will give us the actual value of calcium, and it is used to rule out pseudo hypocalcemia. Now, if we look at the causes of hypocalcemia, most important cause is hypoparathyroidism, because in my previous class when I talked about the calcium homeostasis, we have seen that parathyroid hormone is the major determinant of calcium level in our body. By acting on the kidney and bone, it maintains the calcium level in the blood. So whenever there is hypoparathyroidism, there will be reduction of calcium level in the blood, resulting in hypocalcemia. Hypoparathyroidism may be as a result of autoimmune involvement of the gland due to autoimmune disease, or maybe due to infiltrative disease, like maybe due to tuberculosis or sarcoidosis. Post thyroidectomy, because when the surgeon removes the thyroid, many of the times the parathyroid gland also gets removed with the thyroid gland, so there may be hypoparathyroidism iatrogenic. Familial hypoparathyroidism, also known as DiGeorge syndrome. There may be impaired release of parathyroid hormone, and it is seen in cases of hypomagnesemia as well as in case of hypermagnesemia. So these are the causes of hypoparathyroidism, which ultimately leads to hypocalcemia. Now, vitamin D deficiency will also lead to hypocalcemia, because in my previous class I have talked that vitamin D ultimately causes absorption of calcium from the intestine, thereby maintains the calcium level in the blood. So if there is vitamin D deficiency, there will be hypocalcemia. Vitamin D deficiency may be as a result of limited sun exposure, which is mainly seen in cases of elderly population, due to liver disease, because the precursors for vitamin D is synthesized in the liver. So liver problem will result in vitamin D deficiency. Due to renal disease like nephrotic syndrome, or maybe due to renal failure also, where there is decreased function of 1-alpha hydroxylase, there also vitamin D will be deficient. In case of hyperphosphatemia, what it causes, when there is increased level of phosphate in the blood, it will combine with the calcium and it will chelate the calcium, and this phosphate calcium complex will get deposited in various tissues. So ultimately there will be hypocalcemia. Use of citrate containing blood or citrate anticoagulation in cases of dialysis also will cause hypocalcemia, because citrate will bind the calcium. Certain drugs like phoscarnate or fluoroquinolones can also result in hypocalcemia. In critically ill patients also, most of the time we see the calcium level is low, because in critically ill patient there will be release of cytokine, and this cytokine will cause suppression of the parathyroid hormone as well as calcitriol release, thereby resulting in hypocalcemia. So these are the few causes of hypocalcemia. Now, if we talk about the symptoms of hypocalcemia, the major symptom of hypocalcemia is due to increased excitability of nerve and muscle. If it is a mild case of hypocalcemia, we do not see any symptoms usually until it is moderate to severe. So, increased excitability of nerve or muscle will ultimately result in paresthesia. It may be circumoral or distal paresthesia, like tingling, numbness sensation, just surrounding the oral cavity, or maybe in the peripheries, in the extremities. There may be tetany, okay, muscular spasm. There may be laryngospasm, Okay, in central nervous system, it may result in confusion, seizures, or even coma. In cardiac, in heart, it may result in bradycardia, severe bradycardia, and it may result in decompensated heart failure. So these are few symptoms of hypocalcemia. If we talk about the signs, there are two named signs which we can really get clinically. So one is Trousseau's sign. In this, what we do is that first we note down the systolic blood pressure of the patient, and then we inflate the blood pressure cuff over systolic blood pressure for 3 minutes. So when we do that, there will be spasm, carpal spasm. So this is a positive sign of positive sign for hypocalcemia, known as Trousseau's sign. The other sign is Vostek sign. In this, there will be twitching in the facial muscle whenever we are tapping the facial nerve in front of the ear or anterior to the ear. So make the patient sit, then tap the facial nerve in front of the ear, then there will be twitching of the facial muscle. This is due to hyperexcitability as a result of hypocalcemia. Okay, so these are two named signs which we can get clinically. Now, if you talk about the diagnosis, definitely we should be doing a serum calcium level. To get the corrected calcium level, we need to do a serum albumin. To find out the cause of hypocalcemia, we will get one intact parathyroid hormone level, serum vitamin D level, serum phosphorus level, because we have already seen hyperphosphatemia causes hypocalcemia, and serum magnesium level, because magnesium alteration in the magnesium level alters the release of parathyroid hormone. So these are the few investigations we are going to do to find out if there is true hypocalcemia as well as the cause of hypocalcemia. Now, if we talk about the treatment, in mild cases or asymptomatic cases, the patient usually does not require any immediate treatment. But it is a severe case or seriously symptomatic case, we need to do immediate treatment. Before calcium supplementation, we should definitely rule out hyperphosphatemia, because phosphate again will combine with the supplemented calcium, resulting in formation of calcium phosphate complex, and it will get deposited in various tissues. So there will be aggravation of hypocalcemia. So before correction of calcium or supplementation of calcium, we need to correct the hyperphosphatemia, and we can do it by doing dialysis. So in case of hyperphosphatemia associated with severe hypocalcemia, we need to go ahead with the dialysis. We need to definitely correct the hypomagnesemia, otherwise the supplementation of calcium is not going to help the patient. So for correction of hypomagnesemia, we need to give 2 grams of magnesium sulfate over 15 minutes, which can be followed by a continuous infusion of magnesium until magnesium is corrected. Now, coming to the calcium supplementation, for intravenous supplementation of calcium, we can use gluconate or chloride. Most of the time we will be using gluconate because it causes less extravasation related complications, which is more common in case of calcium chloride complexes. So we most of the time will be supplementing calcium intravenously by using calcium gluconate solution. Now, 1 ampoule of calcium gluconate solution means 10 ml of 10% calcium gluconate. Now, what does it mean? 10%, 10 ml, 10% calcium gluconate means it will contain 90 milligram of elemental calcium. Okay. So, in cases of acute severely symptomatic hypocalcemia, we will mix 1 to 2 ampoule of calcium gluconate, that is 10 to 20 ml of calcium gluconate, that will be equivalent to 90 to 180 milligram of elemental calcium. We will mix this with 5% dextrose water, maybe 50 or 100 ml, and we will infuse it over 10 to 20 minutes. So this will be a bolus infusion of calcium gluconate, which to be followed by a maintenance infusion. And the maintenance infusion, the dose will be 0.5 to 1.5 milligram of elemental calcium per kg per hour. Now, to supplement this or for the maintenance infusion, what we will do is that we will mix 10 ampoule of 10% calcium gluconate, that is 100 ml of 10% calcium gluconate in 1 liter of 5% dextrose water. So that means in 1 liter solution we will have almost 900 milligram of elemental calcium. So 1 ml of solution means 0.9 milligram of elemental calcium. So we can infuse at a rate of 50 ml per hour of the solution, and titration can be done as needed. Okay. If it is not an emergency case, then we can do oral supplementation also. For oral supplementation, we can use calcium carbonate, which contains 40% of elemental calcium, or calcium acetate, which contains 25% of elemental calcium. 1 to 2 gram of elemental calcium 3 times a daily should be the dosing. Now, we can supplement vitamin D orally. 400 to 1000 international unit per day we can do supplementation. If there is severe deficiency of vitamin D, we can supplement as 50,000 international unit weekly for 6 to 8 weeks. But if it is a case of severe malnutrition, we may even supplement 50,000 international unit daily also. Calcitriol or activated form of vitamin D is better because it has more rapid onset of action. The dosing is 0.25 microgram daily, but we can up titrate the dose every 2 to 4 weeks depending on the patient's response. Most of the time patients will be at a maintenance dose of 0.5 to 2 microgram daily. Okay. So this is all about the treatment of hypocalcemia I wanted to discuss. I hope this class was helpful. Thank you so much for attending.